It's clear that there's a lot of discussion that can potentially still play off, so clearly we've picked a topic that's of interest. Can I get an indication from the groups in front of me who would like to volunteer to go first? Volunteers rather than me picking. Is that volunteering, sir? Thank you. Will your group give feedback? If we can get a microphone to the group there in the middle, please. So we're going to ask that we give very short feedback per group. When you go to the next groups, if something's already said, let's not duplicate, let's just add on. Just to make it a little bit quicker, we're trying to break for lunch at 12:30. And again, the reminder, please, can we just make sure that we get the notes through to the secretariat, the people that's sitting here on my left. Right, the group there in the middle, please.
All right, thank you, everyone. My name is Mohammed
Can I just
Noor.
ask that the rest of the groups give them the opportunity to give feedback, please?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. My name is Mohammed Noor. I'm the Deputy AG of Sudan. So based on the group discussion of the table, we agreed that, so the answer for the first question in regard to which aspect of the HR management value chain would you propose should be included in the future global stock-taking reports too. So for that one, we agreed should be HR planning. Although all the cycle seem to be necessary, but we agreed that we should select HR planning, performance management, and then retention and succession. For the second question, we agreed to be, I'm not going to read the questions. Everybody has the questions.
Yes.
So we agreed to be HR strategy because it is external. Considering the stringence of the budget, we agreed to be on the job training. This is the first aspect. And then job rotation and monitoring. For question B, having the important steps in terms of strategy and planning. So we agreed that we'll go for the first, SI should conduct self-assessment first, and then based on the self-assessment, in that self-assessment they can use different frameworks like ICBF or PFM, and based on the assessment conducted, then they can identify the gap, specific gap wherever it is, and then they can share experience with other sites like benchmark, because it will be under their budget, and benchmark can be soft sharing by email or any virtual means. So, and then based on the work conducted previously, they should design an action plan. Okay. So in brief of that, it is an implementation, and then monitoring, evaluation, and then follow-up. For the third question, is about the opportunity at the 3 level. So at the level of the SI, we agreed that top management commitment, this is the first opportunity. Yeah. It will be at the level of the SI, and then the SI can use facilities provided by the regional organization, like e-learning. Also, this is a good opportunity to be used at the level of the SI. And then relationships with other stakeholders like the parliament and the civil societies. We also believe this is a good opportunities at the level of the SI. So at the level of the regional level, which is the other level down, so the use of the SI, the use of the INTOSAI guidelines and standards. This is a good opportunity. And then provision of the e-learning by the regional organization themselves. And then the use of the assessment tools like PFM to assess size needs, specific size need. And the last level, at the CBC level, this is, we agreed to be first conferences like what we're having now. which could be organized at the level of the CBC or any of the other INTOSAI working group. So the last one at the CBC level is actually the feedback from different regional organizations. Feedback provided to the specific size by any different regional organization. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thank you for being so comprehensive and remembering the levels that we had in there. I quite like what you said about self-assessment and that whole idea of not just doing self-assessment but benchmarking between others. You know, it's our community. We said it yesterday when Jens spoke. It's about our leadership and it's about us looking after each other. So the benchmarking, I think, is quite a nice one. The other one that I also like, you talked about the value of international seminars. I'm sure that Emmerich, the colleagues from Slovakia, will talk about the success of just bringing role players together in a room about a topic such as peer reviews. I think we all, let me talk from my point of view, underestimated the value of doing that. It was such an eye-opener to see how many new lessons you can learn in a seminar like that, on a topic that you thought you knew about, and how many new people in INTOSAI you can meet, how many connections you can make. So I think valuable comments from that. We'll get the written notes from you, sir. Another group that want to have a stab at this, right next to there, Gordon.
Thank you very much. On question number 1A, for future global stock-taking reports, we think that there should be a question that assess HR strategy in terms of the process and content, and also the implementation and evaluation of the same by size. We also think that another area that actually is of interest, if it can also be assessed, is the issue of attraction and recruitment, how it's done by the size. There may be something that will actually shed some good light in terms of when we want to do capacity development. Okay. Then B, which aspects of HR value chain should receive more support from the bodies, INTOSAI bodies and regional bodies. Again, here what we say is, I think this whole idea of linking HR strategy to the main corporate strategy. So if size can receive capacity in terms of developing their HR strategies, how to go about attraction and recruiting. And number 2 is the whole idea of learning and development, training of staff. Our idea here is we said we need, in the event that you don't have enough resources in terms of the budget, then of course you need to look at issues of in-house training priorities that can be there. Start from where you are, what you have, based on available sources. We discussed an issue of blended learning, that it's not only face-to-face issues where you are actually sourcing out the capacity to train. It's something you can do something inside. An example is the issue of on-the-job training and peer-to-peer among teaching one another issues, and then coaching from managers, managers coaching their own staff. So the whole idea, the SAI can organize itself to start with what it has, a blended learning approach, whilst they are looking at issues of saying, where do we get money to get people in a classroom? 2B, what are the most important steps that must be taken? The first things, of course, like the issue of needs assessment, training needs assessment, and actually based on a competence framework that we have, we define the competence that you need, and then how we are going to develop them, and then that will sort of speak into your needs to help you come up with an HR strategy, to come up with issues of an annual plan that will help you that, okay, for this year we are going to focus on this, and all this may be guided by the how in terms of an HR policy, in terms of training and development policy. Then number 3, the last one, the opportunities. For us, we love the issue of these opportunities, and we believe that as a family here, there are so many opportunities that we can actually take advantage of in terms of one at a regional and also at a side. Number one is what we have just said, which Slovakia is going actually to comment on. The issue of peer-to-peer, there's a lot of opportunities there, both at regional and at side level. Then bilateral partnerships, both at regional and also side level, and including developed size, who can actually help the less developed size. And the last one we have here is the issue of partnership with the academic institutions.
Thanks, Gordon. Appreciate that. I think from Magnus's point of view, with this Theme 2 session coming up on peer-to-peer, I'm sure he's very happy to hear that more and more of you are talking about this family. Let's look after each other. Peer-to-peer came through in your work quite often. From my point of view, Gordon, very happy to hear about the competency framework that drives needs assessment. I think the task force and also the people on IDI that's working on their certification, professional education program would be overjoyed. The academic one at the end was quite interesting. It's something that I think we tend to mention, but we always then caution ourselves to say that maybe the academic institutions has got more of a private sector feel. Do you want to expand a little bit about that support, Gordon? What you had in mind with academic institutions? Sorry if we can have a mic back at Gordon.
We're thinking best from when we have a competence, when we have defined your competencies, you have a framework there that should speak into what sort of syllabus you need to have, a curriculum you need to have. And then you take it to an academic institution that, can you deliver on this, and can we partner? Okay. Rather than just going to a university and say, okay, train our people on this, we want to join this already program. That is off the shelf. But you have a collaborative approach with the academic institutions that can help much. And that assumes that you'll be knowing what to have. My colleague wants to add.
Can I add?
Please.
Yes, I am from the Philippines. Philippines. We have we heard Jean Jodar earlier to talk about this coordination with the universities. Philippines has done this. We approach universities, especially the College of Accountancy, so that when we like, it's like a job fair. We explain to the university, to the students of the College of Accountancy of these big state universities in the Philippines, and explain to them what the SAI is, what are what are the positions that they may apply for in the future once they get certified as a certified public accountant. So we've done that in the past.
Okay. I think that's fantastic, and it's something that as I walked around, I think I heard quite a bit of people saying that we're strong enough and we're confident enough that we can go to university and influence the curriculum. Similarly, I'm not sure whether it's necessarily in this room, but I know in the task force on professionalization, we've heard often where people almost feel like a victim when they trade with the Public Service Commission. They're improve something. I love that level of confidence. Thanks for reflecting on that in the questions. The next group that want to have a go? Yes, right behind them.
Hello, there is still something to add. And this is from the European and Japanese group. And I should say that we have been very selfish in looking at this. We've been looking at what's useful for us in our own size. And we think that brings the most reward whilst we're here. And on the Global Stock-Taking Report, we noted that it's quite a comprehensive document already, with an awful lot of dimensions, an awful lot of questions being answered. So again, on what's useful for us, we think in the HR part we needed really ideas and examples from what's going on in other SAI. So what our point there is to look at what types of rewards and recognitions are used in the size. That is non-monetary, or could be monetary, but mainly not payroll, but everything else. We've been looking at bonuses. We've been looking at also people being able to put their ideas forward that can be recognized as best practice, and pushing for that. This is really the people you should look at to enhance yourself inside the SAI. When it comes to the support bit of things, we're a bit more traditional. We think that INTOSAI should stay on the material side of things, the training materials, the exchange between SAIs, making sure that there is a set of ideas and what are important to look at when you're looking into HR. In the regional organizations, along the line of the inspirational seminars, perhaps having training and development initiatives again, looking at peer-to-peer support in learning and development, and also perhaps having more local leadership development classes among SAIs in the same cultural region, because we note that leadership is also a lot about culture. And we certainly agree with the people that said that the most important leader is the one directly above you, the one you interact with every day. That's the one that motivates you or demotivates you in coming to work. When it comes to the training, I reminded our group that it's all about, if you don't have the money, you still have the tasks to be done. So actually just the assignment of more and more advanced tasks to your people, making sure that you don't stick with what you know, that people are getting a little bit more challenges every month or every year, maybe another sector, maybe another part of the audit field, and are able to stretch themselves. And there is so much material out there in the world now, so that the professional people that we employ are quite able to hunt for it themselves, given the tasks. And you'd be surprised sometimes about where they find things. So maybe not give too much advice as a manager, because that can actually inhibit the people in their sort of creative processes, as it were. Of course, also working together with more experienced staff, having mentors, having the people that bring you on boards. Online training and e-learning is obvious ones, but also to use your internal staff as trainers, appreciating that it's challenging sometimes. So you really need to have some really strict push from the top to say that this is part of your work, also to train other people, not only deliver on your actual audits or on your actual reports, but it's part of your work also to make sure that you develop people around you. And if you're going to the various training seminars, which cost more money, sending people abroad perhaps, then use the train the trainer. That has been used a lot. Okay. Answer 2B, I don't think I'm going to answer, because that you can read about in the material already. It's sort of the obvious way to develop a training plan. But more perhaps on the capacity development in general. And as we had been advised to be opportunistic, it's hard to plan for it. We noted. But one thing which I think was noted from the neighboring table as well is to cooperate with other public sector institutions, to have an open eye for whatever is being offered by your auditee. And certainly I found that they never say no to have another one on a program or on a seminar to learn more about the sector, and also sort of more general public sector programs. In most cases, there's one it comes to mind now actually, there was somebody that did not want us on it. They had a chief financial officer core group in Norway, and they did not want the chief financial officer from the National Audit Office to join it, because they thought we would cheat and tell back on all their weaknesses. So they didn't trust. But in all other cases, I think it's possible. Also, at the moment, there are so many free short courses and seminars offered by business schools and others. The managerial experiences, it's quite common, and a lot of them offer it specifically to the people that have been to their schools before, but there's a lot of general stuff out there as well. Also, to build on the materials already developed by INTOSAI and the regions, and of course, grab whatever you can from your sister organizations, and for places like this. I mean, I know for sure that already from yesterday I've got 3 or 4 leads. Like as you were pointing out, you went to the seminar about peer reviews, and you thought you knew it all, and then you always bring home new ideas.
That's true.
That's pretty much it, I think. Anybody want to supplement? No?
Great.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Gordon, that phrase that you used, family, hey? It's coming back. Look, let's look after each other. I love the fact that you've unpacked these alternatives to what we perceive as formal training. You know, we've got to be at the classroom, we've got to be at a seminar. On-the-job training, rotation, talk to auditees. I mean, you had a whole list of those. Again, I suppose it proves Jens's point of yesterday. If you think about these things as opportunities, you'll spot them. They're there. You must just be open-minded enough for that. So thank you.
And we need an address to send our answers to, because it's all written down. So you'll get it by email.
Good, good. Kobus is definitely the man for that. This group in the middle, oh, fantastic. If we can get the microphone here in the middle, please, in front. This group. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a report from the most diverse group in the room. We had Peruvians, Brazilians, Cameroonians, Iranians, and Nepalese. And I'm from the UK. So as all diverse groups, we had a lot of rich discussion. Very hard to get everybody to focus on the questions that you had for us. But I will make 7 points, and then my colleague Victor will add if there's anything that's missing. In terms of what the stock-taking report said and could do more of, we felt that it could look at the issue of independence much more carefully than it has done, because independence, whether it's organizational or institutional, then has impact on budgets. And without budgets, it's very difficult to actually talk about all the things in the HR value chain. But nonetheless, when budgets have been cut to the bone, it creates a sort of a culture of mediocrity, because managers and individual auditors are important, and creating an environment and a culture in which you strive for improvements does allow for certain people to demonstrate what they're able to do. The way in which staff are recruited and attracted varied quite a lot across in the table. The recruitment at the entry point is actually very, very strong, because in most countries, a lot of individuals strive to be part of government. So in one case, in Brazil, for every one job available, there are about 1,000 applicants. So people do get in who are of a high quality, but then there is a drain after that, because poor performance is very difficult to actually extract people out of the organization. In terms of training, despite there being very little amount of funding available, there were different models that people have adapted. In one case, in Cameroon, you have at least 16 weeks of training that auditors must undergo in order to be able to do the job, and that is quite well recorded. However, in order to get the 16 weeks done, they have a good model in which 5 people are selected to go on training, but they are selected on the basis of being able to actually come back and do trainer of trainer, something that we heard. And that training of trainers is also included in the 16 weeks of training that everybody must undergo. In Nepal, the training is very different. It's only 40 hours of training required, but that too is done as best as they can within the budget that they have. And then what should, coming to the last point about what should, what capacity building should be done by INTOSAI, 2 things came up. One is the degree to which you can create a common curriculum that can be used online and a syllabus that individual SAIs can then access to develop their own capacities. That is an idea that might be developed a bit further, and maybe Victor can talk about it, because it was something that he put on the table. And then the other important area is, to the extent possible, leadership training. Because what we found, what has been the case in Peru, for example, is that technocrats are well recruited and they are very to capture the opportunities that we talk about to develop further. I think those are the main points that came out of our group. Very rich discussion, as you'd expect from a diverse group, and enjoyed it very much. So thank you.
Wow, and you've done a good job if Victor refuses to take the microphone. Whoa, no, thank you so much. I love it, two challenges left at the end, that common curriculum and the leadership training, and I'm sure if Einar was in the room, I know he's I think slipped out to speak to the donors at the moment, but I think certainly good news from an IDI point of view. I also like that term that you used, the culture of improvement. It's something that we so often find when we talk about the SciPMF, where people say, well, it's a tool for development needs. But it implies that culture of growing and continuous improvement, even for people that's achieved well. There's a point in the video on SciPMF where we talk about, well, if you're on the top end, you probably sort of confirm that you're a member in good standing. But the only way that you remain that is by improving. So thanks for that emphasis. Another group, there's a hand there. Yep, it's the right group.
Hello everyone, I'm Şeyma Fırat from Turkey, and as the only lady on the table, I had to take the microphone. For the first question, actually it was really hard to decide which one is more important, and so we thought that all the blocks depends on the first block, so we first think that HR strategy is the one that the next report should focus on, and also we want to add the learning and development is important too, because it's kind of a result of HR strategy and HR planning, the implementation part. For the B, we want to propose 3 of them: HR strategy, learning and development, and retention and succession. Because we thought HR planning is mostly depend on SAIs themselves. So for the support from the organizations, these 3 will be more important. For the second question, for budget constraints, we thought that some projects, like winning projects, peer-to-peer cooperation, internships in other SAIs would help SAIs to improve themselves without budget. And for the B, the steps that can take by the SAIs are firstly, they can search for good practice examples, and maybe international organizations or regional organizations would help us to provide this kind of documents so that we can check and look forward for examples, and then looking out for opportunities and defining needs, facilitation for leadership, and deciding the methodology for implementation, and also considering artificial intelligence, such as how to use IT systems and learnings maybe. And for the last question, sharing experience between SAIs and international organizations such as this one, and enhancing community ties between regional organizations, and considering hot topics, emerging issues such as refugee crisis or SDGs, and joint audits and peer reviews will also kind of opportunities for SAIs. This is all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thanks for being short, although there was a lot of information in there. I tried to write furiously as you started listing some of the priorities at that last question. Thank God there's a couple of them that's already in work streams, but some good ones to think about. Who else? The group here in front?
Yeah.
Oh, you've got the mic. Great. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I represent the group of, SAI Kenya, SAI Liberia, and SAI India. And for the first question, question number 1A, we feel that the HR strategy, retention and succession, performance management, and reward and recognitions, these are the aspects which should be included in the future global staking report. And particularly from CBC side or from the INTOSAI body side, most trust should be given on HR strategy and the performance management. Okay. And with respect to the question number 2A, answer is question number 2A. Already mentoring, on-the-job training, in-house training has been covered, but we feel that apart from that, we can engage in the cooperative audits are a good opportunity for SAIs to develop their capacity, and using of e-learning facilities and job rotations. That is also quite important for to have a proper capacity within the SAI. And well-endowed SAIs, they can help the other SAIs with twinning programs. And with respect to question number 2B, like what an effective training strategy and training plan should cover, we feel that that training strategy and training plan should clearly cover a proper gap analysis. As Jens has said, it should also identify the opportunities which is really available. And third one is that there should be a clear ownership amongst the senior leadership. That should also be clearly demarcated at the beginning itself. And apart from that, and when you organize any training, rather than a unilateral training, you can have it as a bilateral, bidirectional, in the sense that after each training you take feedback and fine-tune your training program to the needs. And finally, it's like that you should use that expertise which is available in the other government training centers. Say, for example, in case of SAI India, we have just rolled out the GST. So we generally use the government training program to gather the domain knowledge for our auditors. And similarly, for budget constrained SAIs, rather than sending your participants out, you can invite a very competent trainer to your country, and you can train a pool of people. So that can also be a strategy which can be adopted. And with respect to question number 3B, for capacity development at SAI level and regional level, a pool of TOTs would help the SAIs in their capacity development.
A pool of?
Trainer for trainers.
Oh, okay, got it.
And you can also leverage upon the body of knowledge which is available with the CBC. Like you can come out with best practices in HR management, strategies, recruitment, and also available. You can use the platform, like we have a KSC community portalnet. These platforms can be used for sharing exchanges, sharing ideas. Yep. So that's what to sum up from our group. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Who are we missing out? I know that we've got about 2 or 3 groups. There at the back, just if you move there, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Imrich Gala. I'm from the SAI of Slovakia, and I'm representing our table that is composed of our SAI, our colleagues from Austria, and our colleague from the World Bank and SAI of China. So this is our answers to the individual questions. I'm not going, of course, to read them. The answer to the 1A, it is possibility to take globally elements that could be compared on global level. That means human resources strategy and planning. Other elements of the value chain differ greatly from SAI to SAI and could be hard to compare and draw common conclusions. Answer to 1B, human resources strategy is global issue. The individual elements of the value chain could be very similar in certain INTOSAI regions, but in the same could be very different in detail. For example, Karasai or Pasai should be in the focus. Answer to A, point peer-to-peer support was or international support was chosen as the focus, and the other point to the answer to the question 2A is the IDI programs and other INTOSAI bodies developed programs and products, for example, like Sigma, but of course it's applicable according to individual conditions. Okay. The answer to the question 2B would be providing that the SAI has independence and resources. It has to be decided if SAI has enough in-house competence to develop and implement effective strategy and plan, or has to turn to other actor. Okay. SAI leadership has to take and accept the strategy and plan on its own volition. So this means the decision of the leadership of the particular SAI is the leading force behind everything. So the leadership has to agree on whatever is going to be performed. And the answer to the question number 3, international cooperation within INTOSAI could be deepened and strengthened, an exchange of best practices with partner actors like regions, CBC and others. Again, we are coming basically within INTOSAI into in-house solutions. Yeah. Yeah. International strong international cooperation within individual SAIs, basically. Thank you.
Thanks, Imrich. Much appreciated. Like the idea that's coming through from a couple of groups around best practices. I think we've had a couple of work streams in the CBC where we've certainly seen that if you stick to just theory, it's difficult. You've got people that believe that they're unique and very different from the theory until you start telling the stories, until you start sharing the best practices. Then you find those commonalities and you have those solutions. So certainly I think that's a nice theme that's coming through. India, you've talked about the fact that we've got the technology available as well to share, so that's something definitely to unpack. This group, is that the last group, I think? Yes? Right, you've got the last word.
Well, thank you. Most of the things we talked about are already being said, were already said, but this is more a general remark. I think what we also mentioned is about not reinventing the wheel, because if we're looking at the question 1B of what should receive more support, and if we combine that with the opportunities Jens talked about, we say we already, for example, for performance management, we already have the PMF that contains criteria for the HR domain. So why not use them or have INTOSAI or all of us together or make a sort of platform where we can share ideas. So it's more, our addition is more about not reinventing the wheel, but using what we have, combining it, and that would give us opportunities to perhaps simplify them, make them more practical. And as Jens said, look for easy entry points. What do we already have? What can we use? And then explore new ways of engaging. That's it.
Absolutely. Quite responsible for a last comment. I must admit, I think that's a fantastic comment to bring it all together. My sense is, as I listen, and you know, you don't want to stand here as a CBC that's supposed to listen and say, oh, but we have it, but we have it. And I'm glad that to some degree you say, in the community it does exist. I know of a couple of work streams that had that feeling of, we're in new territory now, we need to develop something new, then discovered that they can read the PMF and actually found the answers. And at least it gives you a common framework. Maybe the detail's different, but yes, it's there. So fantastic comment to wrap up the session. Gordon, I got to go back to your comment. The concept of family is reconfirmed. The family of INTOSAI, but the family that's got commonalities at regional level, or for that matter, peer-to-peer, SAIs that's got similar fields or similar mandates, similar challenges. For me, that's the message that stands out. And again, it's very good news for the session that we're going to do on peer-to-peer support tomorrow. Just very briefly, if I think about what I've heard in the sessions, if I run through the questions, we know that the CBC guidance on HR practices is up for review in 2019. There's a lot of work. There's a list after list after list of what we can add on and enhance in there. But I take your point that a lot of that may actually be in the form of best practice guidance rather than trying to add more theory to it. The best practices come back time and time again. The priorities within HR, HR strategy, L&D, performance management, succession. If I think about the work currently in the task force, at least 3 of those have featured anyway as a result of the task force. I think perhaps the one that we needed a reminder on is succession planning. You may even argue that leadership development may feature somewhere in there as a priority. Good guidance there. Again, take note of the comments around best practices. Second question, especially the proportion about alternatives where we're under pressure with our budgets. There's a fantastic list of creative solutions here. And again, I go back to Jens's comment of show me your portfolio. You know, get out there and do the most with a little bit that you've got. And the rest of the stuff will emerge. If you start telling your story, somebody will pick up on it, and you can start swapping ideas. The table of diversity in front all as well, we picked up on commonalities, and immediately there's the option of sharing and learning from each other. I heard things like rotation, stretch assignments, on-the-job training, mentorship, making sure of government organizations, lots of emphasis on trainer type concepts. And I think there was an overall comment that talked about the leadership commitment that need to bring that together. As to challenges, that last cover-all phrase of what's the opportunities that we spot in the market, I've heard very definitely the concept of common curriculum. We've already got the competency framework out there. I think IDI is investing a lot in their certification/professional education program to get to that common curriculum, hopefully with a lot of support from the community. In similar vein, I suppose the emphasis that we've heard the whole day on leadership development, also good news. Again, I would imagine from the point of view of IDI specifically, good support for what they're out there doing with the SAI Young Leader program, and perhaps expanding beyond that. And I suppose almost the majority of other comments that was made on the opportunities is this whole idea of sharing of best practices, communicating better, making use of the portal that's there for that sharing. I certainly know that there's a point that we've elevated from the Oslo session where we engage with the regions, where we talk about communication. At a similar undertone, it is that session that almost sort of triggered and finalized the idea of having a session on communication at the INTOSAI Governing Board later this year. So we've got a lot of content that we can potentially bring into that session, but certainly good challenges that we can take back and reflect in the CBC work plan. But also a lot of confirmation that some of the things that we've been out there doing for the last year or two is probably in the right direction. And as long as we remember about those and we don't reinvent the wheel. Right, thank you very, very much for spending such a lot of time, the intense discussions. You don't always pick a topic that keep people busy until the end and you need to suddenly accelerate your breaks, etc. This time around we've just overrun with a small little bit. Really appreciate that. Can I just check from Kimmy and Magnus' side, any comments from you as we close up? Happiness. Good. Same arrangement, Kobus, I suppose, as yesterday. Lunch. Well, Ahmed, come tell us. Right. I don't need to do that. In your hands, sir.
Hi, everyone. I think I met with